Hello guys, binemmanuel here. This video is going to focus on creating authentication and authorization and an authentication and authorization system. I think we did a lot of the big work in the previous video, and if you haven't seen the previous video, I recommend you go back to that video and then watch it. Here we have an auth route that allows us authenticate a user. Here we can actually check to see that the username and password this person has provided to us is a valid one. So what I talked about in the previous video is that we could also do an extra work here by creating a JWT, Json Web Token. And this Json Web Token is for us to keep this user logged into our application and to also help us verify that, yes, this user is who they claim to be when they want to carry out some operations like deleting, updating, or fetching data from our system. So it's not going to make sense if I just run around talking, but I think let's head over to the code and then see what I'm actually talking about. So if you look at this here now, you can see that we have a couple of routes like get users, add user. So you want to add permissions to this. Okay, if someone is able to add a user, or if someone is able to delete a user, then who is this person going to be? Who is actually this person? We need to know who this person is. Does this person have the rights to delete or update or do anything that the person is trying to do? Carry out any of these actions that they are actually trying to carry out. So the JWT is one good way to help us do the authentication. And so instead of putting this user's data in session, it isn't ideal to save it in session. So you'd want to encrypt this data into a JW token. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the authenticate route. Here, this is where I'm going to do everything I need to do for creating the user's token. So I will go to my browser and yep, this is the token you'd want to search for. You should search for this token. Just go ahead, write this in the search bar. I'm going to leave a link to the package in the description below, so you don't need to worry about typing it yourself. You can just click on the link and it will bring you here. To install it, this is what we need to do. Just copy this command and then go to your terminal and then do the composer require. So we want to require this package. So go ahead, run this command. After running this command, you'll have it installed. But I'm going to show you my JSON file so that you see exactly the version I have installed. So you can as well copy this line of code and then paste it in your own composer.json file. And if you did it that way, then you can actually run updates. So you've got two options to install it. It's either you copy the command here to install it, or you copy the exact version that I have like this, paste it here, and then run composer update. If you're done with this, then we can go ahead to create our JSON Web Token. Now, after a user is logged into the application, the next thing you'd want to do is create this web token if and only if the username and password is correct. So that should be after this condition that checks if we've got the user or not. So I'm going to create the token here, and I'm going to say token is going to be equal to something, and I'll head over to documentation because let's assume that I don't know how to do any of what I'm talking about. So I'll head over to documentation and then see how it is done. So if you look at the documentation here, it has the description of how to do this. The syntax for doing this is what you see here. What you do is create a JSON Web Token, an instance of JSON Web Token, and then pass a payload to it and a secret key. And the payload is just data you want to encrypt in this token. So the data is going to be passed into the token, and the token can be sent to your client. So you're not sending the actual data to the client, but an encrypted version of this data to the client. And when the client provides this data, you can now do whatever you want to do with the data on your server. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And you can go ahead, read through the description yourself, and then know what everything here is, and that'll be it for now. Okay, let's talk about the secret key. The secret key is a required argument that has to be passed, and it's just going to help us verify the token. So if I'm creating a JSON Web Token, I need a secret key which only my server is aware of. And so you cannot pick a JSON Web Token from a different server and then use it on this server and it will work fine. No. So the secret key is what you now use to verify this token that was created from your server. All right, so let's head over to how to create the token. So we need to instantiate a JWT object. So I will instantiate the JWT object. So equal to new JWT. And then the JWT object is going to take a pay load, and the payload is going to be the user's ID. So once the user is logged, we're going to pass the user's ID to our payload like this. I'm always making that mistake. So once the user is logged, we want to pass the user's ID. This is not required. We don't need to do that. And whatever you're passing in as the payload is your decision to make. You can put anything here, but I decided to use you pass the user's ID instead of sending the entire user's data. No, I don't want to do that. I'll just pass the ID, and then when the ID comes back to the server, we can now do whatever we want to do with it. Well, it won't make sense until we test it out. Now, the next thing that should follow is the secret key, which is going to be whatever you put here. You're going to make sure that the secret key is a very strong one. But for me, I will just call it my app. But you'd want to make sure that your secret key is a very, very good one, just like as you'd want your password to be very nice and secure. But for the sake of this video, I will just leave the secret key like this. And the next thing to do is actually creating the JSON Web Token, which I can do by calling the create token method. So I'll go ahead to create the token. So token is going to be equal to JWT create token, and that will be it. Then I can pass the token I just created to the data I'm sending back to the client. So I can send the token back to the client. Come on. And maybe I also want to send the user back to the client like that. All right, so we now have our token created. So we can head over to our login route. And if I click, you can see that we have this here already. So we have the token here, and this is the user that just logged in. If you try logging in with a different user, you're going to get, let me see the list of the users I have. So I have a different user called binemmanuel. Let's see, I try binemmanuel, and I try my password. Oops, I don't know what my password is. Bin. All right, I don't know what that password is. So I don't know what that password is. So since I don't know what the password is, I think I'll just leave it at that and then stick to the previous user I was using to test this. All right, but I think that is it. That is it for creating a JSON Web Token. And to use this JSON Web Token, you might also want to use JSON Web Token when it comes to let's say when it comes to getting users or when it comes to deleting users. We also want to make sure that this user is logged into our application to delete a user. And to do that, what you would want to do is to create a new function. And I'll call this function auth. And the function is going to be exactly the same thing we've been doing previously, because we want to pass the function we're creating now into the route as a middleware. So for the delete route here, we're going to pass it as a middleware. So if you put your cursor here, you'd see that the delete method takes 3 arguments: the route, callback, and a next callback. And this next callback could be anything, but it's exactly the same thing as the callback. So I want to pass the auth here as a middleware, and what it means is that the auth will be run before the actual method that or function that we're passing to the route. So let's see, let me go ahead with this. A request. A response. And then the callable, which is the next function we would want to call. And then what you'd want to do here is get the token from the user. The user would have to provide this token to us, and then we will verify the token to see if the token is valid or not. And after the verification, we can grab the data we passed to the token as a payload. So here what I'm doing is I'm saying if the X auth token is null, then we're just passing an empty string to token because the user didn't provide the token at all. And this can actually be any value. The key can be anything you decide you want it to be. but this is what I want it to be. And then I want to check if the token is empty. And if the token is empty, then there's no point proceeding to verifying a token that isn't provided. So what you'd want to do here is return back a response to the client. And here the response is saying there is an error, and the message will be unauthorized, right? So just helping the user know that, hey, you're not authorized. And then also the status code is also going to be unauthorized. I don't think, let's look at this. So the unauthorized status code is 401. So you need to make sure it's 401. And you are done with that. Then the next thing you'd want to do is, if the token isn't empty, which means the user provided the token, we can now use this token to do our verification. So to verify the token, what do we do? Let's head over to the documentation and then see how to verify a token. Now, to verify the token, we need to create an instance of the JWT and then call the verify token method. I'm going to do that in one line. So I'm going to create a conditional statement here that says if the JWT token is verified, so we would pass the token to the verify token method, and then I can return back this as a response if it isn't verified. So I'm going to negate the statement because I'm now saying if the JWT token isn't verified, then please send the message to the client that says unauthorized, or else this person is authorized and can use our application. So we will just call the next function. And the next function is going to be this function here. So this is the actual function that we want to execute, the function that actually deletes a user from our system. And so after this function is run, then we would want to call this next function, and that will be this. So you can do it by passing exactly the amount of data that is required to delete the user, which is the response and requests variables. So I'm going to pass it because we have it here already. So I can easily do the request and response here. Pass it here. Optionally, you can call a different method. Call user function can also be used to call the function. So you can pass the function and then the first parameter and the second parameter, but basically it's going to be the same thing. So what we've just done here is exactly what we've done here, except for the fact that you're now using a built-in PHP function to call the function. And I think I like this one more, so I'll get rid of that one. Now let's go ahead with a test. So let's say I want to delete this user. I don't remember this password, so I want to delete this user. And we come here, I'll have to pass the user's ID here. And then in the headers here, I'd have to pass an XAuth token, which is going to be the guy that we now verify to do the deleting of that account. Now, if we're not authorized, if we're not logged into the application, then there's no way we can delete the user. So because the token I'm passing here is probably expired or not a valid one, we get unauthorized message from the server. But if we log in, we have a new token. I copy this token from here to the client here as my XAuth token, and I send it. Oops, we get an error. All right, I think I figured out why the error came up. The reason is because after calling the verify token method, it's supposed to take two arguments, the token and the secret key, and I forgot to pass the secret key, so I have to pass my secret key, which is my app. Now the secret key has to match the secret key you created here when the user logged into the application. If it doesn't match, then the token will not be verified successfully. So you'd want to have the same secret key. And so I'll go ahead and try again to see if everything works fine. All right, and it does. So you can see that I'm able to now delete a user from the system. I think there's also one thing I want to change when deleting a user. So instead of having these crazy conditions like this, why not split the thing, and then we have one condition here that checks if the user's account was not deleted, and then we can now return something here. So instead of checking the condition, let's just say through yes, there's an error, and the message too shouldn't be based on any condition. And then we can also say you can't delete an unknown user. And this way it now makes more sense that we're now having a more specific kind of message displayed to the user. And then instead of through here, we say false, and then no checks at all, no condition at all, deleted successfully. And this is a lot more readable, and anybody can actually understand what's happening here. All right, and let's say for getting users too, if a user would need to get all the users we have in the application, maybe this user we need to also authorize the user. If not, a random person can just click on access this endpoint and then get our users. So to prevent something like this from happening, you'd want to add the auth method here. So because I've added this auth method here, a random person cannot just hit our endpoint to get the users from our system. So this person would have to log into the application to get the users. And we will just repeat the same thing. So since it is required that this person is logged in, then the person will have to now pass a login token or an authentication or authorization token rather. And so I'll just copy the authorization token from here and then paste it here. And if I click, you'd see that we are able to now get the user. Now, the token we have created doesn't last forever. It is definitely going to expire, and you can decide to set the time of how long you want this token to last. Although I am not creating any time for this, and there's a default time in which the token is going to last, and I think I like the default time, even though I don't know what it is, but I think I like the default time. So this way, you now understand how to create an authorization system, and I'm sure you should be able to grow this system from here to creating something really nice. You can use the secret key to determine if so you can use the secret key. Let's say you have a system where there are administrators and then users. With the secret key, you can create a specific secret keys for your users and a different secret key for your administrators. And that way, um, if a and then you can now create another middleware, like I created this one. This is actually specifically for authorizing users. So if you want a different one for authorizing administrators, then you'd have to now create a different one and then use that method to authorize your administrators. Or you can just find your way around everything. Nothing is impossible. You just have to think about it, and then you'll have something up. So I think that is all for this video, and I want to say thank you for watching the video.